Alright, so I was just watching an interesting video the UFC do where they follow, you know, all the UFC fighters for their upcoming cards and fights. And I actually was watching this one and thought it was quite interesting because it was kind of showing the weekend before, the week before their contest, kind of the different approaches they're taking towards their fights, and also it shows a good contrast of how different these fighters' approaches can be. They're all fighters, they're all going in there to perform mixed martial arts, so they've all got the same common goal, but they all have different skill sets, different strengths and weaknesses that they need to work on. And also they've all got different philosophies, you know, all these athletes from different countries, ethnicities, areas of the world are fighting, and you can actually see a pretty good example of that, or examples of that, in this video too. So I just thought I'd run through it with you guys and just kind of go through the approaches that they're taking for their upcoming fights. Now, I just want to preface with, you know, I don't actually know what's going on in the four walls. Nobody really does unless they're in there. I can only provide my analysis on the context provided. So everything I'm looking at is from this video. I haven't done any research or anything into their fight camps, generally speaking. It's mostly just analysing this video. But anyway, so we'll jump onto this.
New York today from New Jersey. Every day I wake up and check my weights and happy. I feel like same energy, you know. Everything is changed and I enjoy my camp, you know.
Islam is one of these guys that's a small 170 pounder. He's still cutting a decent amount of weight to make 170. Just it's a little less taxing on the body. He can actually enjoy the training a little bit more. He's peaking. He's right where he needs to be. You know, we're looking forward to him getting in there, getting his hand raised, and getting that double strap.
All hard job is finished. Now I have to enjoy the fight week and be ready. I am prepare myself very hard to get the belt.
Obviously he's fighting at a weight class now, welterweight I believe, that's more applicable to his walking around weight. So the weight cut that he has to do isn't as complex or intense or draining on the body. They've just said that his training has gone to plan and gone to schedule, so he's actually peaking quite well. And if you look back at the footage there, you can see, I think the main goal from an outsider's perspective is just they've got that weight that they kind of need to maintain. So that's the main priority, but also he just wants to feel good. So he's just doing a lot of like bag work, pad work, and running. So I'd say the main priority is just maintain that weight and also just make sure he feels really good. You know, these Dagestani people are renowned for training the absolute house down, which you can guarantee he's done throughout his camp. And now that they're peaking and he's in a better weight class that's more aligned with his normal walking around weight, he's in a really good position just to kind of just train to feel good. And I think that mental component is huge.
We're here at Mundo Jiu-Jitsu in Jersey City, and we're slowly starting to shift the focus now, and tonight was about like snapping into fight week mentality, and the focus will turn to retaining the title.
Let's get some energy in the room for Jack now. Let's up the tempo, 45.
Last sort of hard push, 5 rounds in the bank, trying to push the pace in the grappling and the striking. So last hard session, excited for next weekend.
All right, there you can see Jack Della, this is huge. He's from Perth and more so from Fremantle, which is actually quite close to where I live. We're backing into the hills for this, but you can see there as well, the coaching isn't necessarily focusing on physical attributes or anything like that. It's similar to Islam's, where they're taking an approach trying to focus on feeling good, smoothness, fluidity, mentally feeling good too, just that like lightish sparring where they're pushing the pace as well whenever he wants to. So he's kind of controlling that. So the main two fighters, you can tell that they've obviously prepared immaculately for their fight. And this weekend before the actual contest happens, they're in a pretty good position where they can just focus on feeling really good, trying to maintain that weight, but also like a less intense, less stressful kind of training schedule where they're just focusing on making themselves feel good. At least that's what it looks like from an outsider's perspective. And that's interesting because now I'll move on to Sean Brady right here, who is still continuing on with his strength and conditioning specific training. And I'll just play a little bit of it and let you hear what they have to say.
Last little prep week before the big fight. So we're in a power phase. When you do velocity-based training, everything's measured in meters per second. And that's just going from the bottom of the lift to the top of the lift. And for a speed, strength, or power, we're looking for 0.8 meters per second or higher.
89. Nice, 89, good stuff.
You can have a ton of strength, but can you overcome strength to equal speed? And speed's everything in this sport. We started in the beginning of camp with a lower weight, and we're progressing and using progressive overload going up from a weight standpoint, but making sure that the speed is sticking with that. And so he's really not only just getting stronger, but he's getting faster.
So here you can see, or you probably heard that he's talking about being in a power phase. Power, explosiveness, you know, they go hand in hand. So that's kind of where he's at. A week before, they're really focusing on that explosiveness. And so basically what they're doing is they're just gauging the intensity and tracking the intensity by monitoring that velocity and making sure that each rep is 0.8 meters a second or slightly higher. So they're probably looking at around 0.8 meters a second to around 1 meter a second. So anything above 1 meter a second simply just means the load on the bar is not high enough, and anything below 0.8 meters a second means that the load on the bar is just too high. And that's specifically why they're trying to reach that target of around 0.8 meters a second or slightly more, is because that's providing the true intent and amount of load that they need to get the desired outcome and stimulus they're kind of searching for. It's actually quite a simple way to gauge intensity and monitor intensity, because you're working off basically the amount of force the athlete can express, which is really important. And they've obviously see here on his phone, he's got an app, and he's probably got something attached to that barbell or that trap bar, which is showing him how long it's actually taking to complete each rep of the set. He did say something pretty important there, where he mentioned that they're working on explosiveness and that the whole point of the sport is explosiveness, and without it, that strength means nothing. So you've got to find a way to get stronger, like he just spoke about, but it's got to translate into being able to express that force in an adequate time, in an adequate manner. Like you can get super strong like a power lifter and lift stupid amounts of weights, which is good for your strength. But if you want that to translate into something like mixed martial arts, where there's huge components of reaction time and actual explosiveness, you know, you're trying to beat them to the mark, hit them before they react, stuff like that, you need to be explosive. And so you need to be able to bridge the gap between strength and explosiveness, which he explained pretty well.
We'd be here for an hour and a half because each workout takes so much time. But now that camp's pretty much over, the sets are way, way down. Hard sparring's over, all the heavy lifting's over, my body's prepped and ready to go. The stronger I am, the more I think of it as like body armor, the less I'm going to get hurt while I'm training. And no one's ever said I'm too strong. You know, you can never be too strong. You can never be too fast. There's no such thing. So I'm looking forward to showing all the work we put in.
That's true. Real meathead kind of philosophy. You can never get too strong, which is true. But like I just explained, you need to have that strength translating into your sports. But yeah, research has been done for years and years and years, and strength training is basically the best thing you can do to decrease the chances of you getting injured or increase the chances of you maintaining good health.
Today is training stretch conditioning. I feel very excited.
All right, this is cool because you've got Zhang Weili here, who is Chinese. And so you've just seen kind of American sports science in their power phase. And now you're going to have a good example of how the Chinese do it. And watching this before, I think this is actually a really good example of the Chinese philosophy in terms of training, especially explosiveness and power.
I think this fight is very awesome. Yeah, Valentina is very good.
I thought this was really cool. I thought the head movement with the band, a little bit of resistance, was kind of cool. Never seen that before. This I thought was really interesting, but I'll let you watch it anyway. Basically just a bit of core work, a bit of rotation work, pivoting with those feet as well. Here you can see a lot of explosiveness as well. And that would also be velocity based. They'd kind of be measuring that, whether they're measuring it with a velocity tracker or they've just said, you know, you can get these 5 sets with pure intent. And so we're just going to try to get those 5 sets because that's what we've programmed. Here's some more explosiveness as well. You can see that was just 4 sets. Yeah, this is interesting. This is just really working on coordination, reactiveness. Obviously, they've minimized her vision. It's like low-key, a little bit of blindness, and her just working on that tennis ball stuff. Here's a bit of conditioning. I think it would only be like 5 or 10 second bouts because you just don't want to get any DOMs, like delayed onset muscle soreness or anything this close to the fight. But that's interesting. And here, these 2 things she's got just above her bicep, at the top of her bicep and just below her deltoids, her shoulders. They look like blood flow restriction kind of straps. Blood flow restriction is essentially any limb you have on your body, you can tie around kind of the top of the limb or wherever you want to stop blood going downwards. And it's basically going to prevent blood from coming out of the limb or the area that you've selected, but it'll allow blood to come into it. And it's a strategy used, actually was starting to get used a lot in rehab because you can use super light loads but get like insane blood flow to the area to kind of rehabilitate and recover that area physiologically, but also you get a stupid pump from it. Weird that she's doing it in this situation, not quite sure why. So this just makes me think more that these are just very quick sets, maybe like 4 or 5 second sets. It's just a good way to get some serious blood or work into that area without actually fatiguing it that much, if that makes sense, because you can use lighter and lower loads. There you go, they're 5 second bouts. I don't know how long for, but they'd definitely be short term. All this, these 2 people are in power phases and they're still doing it now because these lighter loads moved explosively don't actually cause as much muscle soreness and fatigue and stuff as obviously heavier loads loaded for longer durations too. So it's much safer to do closer to game day, fight, whenever you have to perform essentially. But I think that's a really awesome example of, you know, American strength and conditioning, or a good example of that, and also a good example of like Chinese strength and conditioning. Americans is really like GPP based, so you know they're doing their traditional lifts and their traditional gym work, whereas like, for example, the Chinese a lot of the time are found to be doing quite interesting stuff. Things like this, which is strange. You would never see this in a Western gym, I don't think. And the Chinese always kind of get judged essentially for doing this kind of stuff. You see the Chinese weightlifting team a lot of the time getting judged for just explosively moving weights. You'll see them do like a lat pull down just explosively, and every gym bro's commenting like that's not how you do it, too fast, not proper form, anything like that. But they're kind of missing the point that, yeah, they're doing a lat pull down, but they're doing it explosively, trying to recruit as much muscle fibers and as much of their central nervous system as possible essentially, and they're not working on hypertrophy. So that's a clear example of the same exercise and looking at it, and it's obviously been done quote unquote wrong, but when you think about the why behind the what, you then understand that they're doing it for a specific reason. And I think that happens too much in the industry. People are very quick to judge things, but they're not thinking about it enough. If you want to judge something, by all means do it, but you got to think about it before you before you speak about it, because you don't actually know what's going on inside those four walls, and the approach they're taking, the physical changes they're trying to achieve, you know, the progress they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to work on. You never know that, so you can't really just quickly judge something. But I think it's a really awesome video just for looking at the contrast between all these people are fighters. Their goal is to fight in mixed martial arts competition, but they've got very different approaches. You see these first two fighters, Islam and JDM, they're kind of just trying to feel good, maintain that weight, feel smooth, fluid, stuff like that. And then you've got Sean Bradley, who is really working on that power phase here. And then you've got the Chinese fighter who is doing the same thing, working on power, taking the power approach, but in a very different manner and utilizing like Chinese training philosophies and the way they traditionally train too. So it's just a good way to see the contrast between all these athletes that are doing essentially the same thing, but how they're kind of getting there. So yeah, here's the video here. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I'm only kind of talking about what I've seen in this video. I don't know what happened before in their training camps or where they're at, because obviously they're all probably still strength training, but like some of these people had strength training on the days they were being filmed, others didn't and had that other work being done. But it's just an interesting thing to look at. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, comment, or let me know. Hope you enjoy. If you like this stuff, let me know and I can do more of it. And also if you like it, please subscribe.
Sorry, this is early.
Thanks.